Welcome to a look at the M6 series pistol. I am with the
Thank you.
Blue Falcon Guard. Much like the MA5 and all its variants, the M6 series handgun was in service for over a century. And the reasons for its service life through
Two galactic wars!
can be a little more interesting than one realizes at first glance.
Historically speaking, soldiers and Marines have only gotten physically larger, stronger, tougher, and more competent as time has gone on. In the early 1900s, 145-pound soldiers in the trenches carrying nothing more than a light pack to live out of, a 5-shot bolt-action rifle, and a clip bandolier could not even dream of, and would probably be broken in half by, being asked to carry what a troop would carry a mere 100 years later.
During, for instance, the early 2000s, soldiers would be asked to invade entire countries with far more equipment, such as a 7-pound rifle that turned itself into an 11-pound rifle after optics, lasers, lights, and a 30-round magazine was inserted, 210 rounds of ammunition minimum, which is at least an extra 8 pounds when loaded into magazines, and of course they would always carry more, an 8-pound helmet, 14 pounds of body armor, and at least 5 pounds of water. And the tiny pack on their back that infantry used to live out of has now evolved into a pack loaded down with at least 60 pounds of the lightest shit ever made up to that point.
Now, conscious of this observation, 400 years later, Mazariah Armory decided to take this concept and scale up the evolution of the handgun to match it. Let's start with caliber. A 4-pound 50 Action Express pistol is not a new concept in small arms. After all, it did create the most well-known autoloading Magnum handgun that has ever barely-ish worked worth a damn in history. But to take this caliber seriously when creating a new standard service handgun is altogether a different task. 12.7 by 33mm, being rough as hell on machines, required a few changes in order for this to work, at least work well enough that the thing didn't beat itself apart. So, similar to the old, this new handgun would utilize previously used concepts such as a heavily reinforced frame with a fixed barrel and a short slide, just like a lot of it. Fired by a striker, recoil operated, magazine fed by either 8 or 12 round magazines, and able to use a set of iron sights, although rarely, uncomplicated to use, and also sporting long-use safety indicators such as a charged striker indicator and manual safety.
This wasn't made to be the greatest handgun of all time. It was made to blow the doors off of someone, or at least really get their attention while they're wearing modern armor. Something that uniquely suits a service handgun that fires a round such as this is making something like SmartLink standard. With the advent of SmartLink technology, somebody that is forced into a situation that requires speed and accuracy is significantly better served by simply being able to see where the bore of an emergency small arm is rather than line up a set of sights. Far more dependable, user-friendly, and more tactically sound than things like lasers, faster and more intuitively used in older reflex sighting systems, although some argue this statement, and with minimal training or effort, a user can simply snatch up this thing, point it until they see the reticle cover what's currently in their face, and dump 8 to 12 300 grain reasons why you and your friends should pack up and go the fuck home. And so things went on this way for some time. From frontline combat to medics, officers, fortress worlds, shitty combat outposts, and uninhabitable rocks to ship hulls. This small but loud handgun served.
Even as modern body armor evolved to severely resist this dump truck of what the fuck even is that, it stayed forced by a magnet to the bodies of those who would regularly use it to save their own lives once placed into impossible situations. For nearly its entire history, it remained peerless. Little to no real changes were made to the overall design other than changes in the finish and electronics, resulting in the M6C. This would be the most widely distributed and utilized variant of the handgun. When we start looking at naval spec war, however, this is where things start to get much more interesting.
The grassy knoll people are responsible for looking at the personal defense weapons system descriptor of this handgun and immediately called bullshit. They demanded an integrally suppressed variant of the pistol that was not only stupidly quiet considering the pistol cartridge we're talking about here, but also volumetrically efficient enough to allow for both the use of its tritium-filled irons and SmartLink. What's even more terrifying about this handgun was the fact that since the suppressor was integral, they could easily extend and port the barrel to increase its overall muzzle velocity and accuracy, single-handedly reviving the offensive handgun concept from the long-dead ancient American program that got its official start, or rather, delivery of working units, in 1996.
It seems that history likes to repeat itself in horrifying parody of form sometimes, as we turn this offensive handgun program into an anti-moose machine. That's polite and zooms. The M6C SOCOM is still in service today, whether it be with orbital drop shot trooper platoons or implausible deniability actions for people that make people look crazy before those same people end up suiciding themselves. This would not be the first time that ONI or Naval Spec War would mess with this handgun either.
Imagine, if you would, being the conceptual small arms designer for a special operations procurement department. You walk into a drafting office with knowledge and mild understanding of a super soldier program of some sort. Of the few things that you do know, the first and foremost is that these, we'll call them people, are very, very strong. Like flip a truck strong. You call a boardroom meeting and your pitch is this.
Alright, so, these people are huge, so let's scale the pistol by, like, a lot of percent. Okay? Okay. Now, let's heavily reinforce the frame, again, and replace the finish with a stainless steel one to allow the handgun to be impervious to nearly any corroding substance. And also, we have another idea. You see, 12.7 by 33 ball is starting to get defeated by modern armor, so let's defeat the armor with a cartridge chambered in 450 Magnum Express. A lighter grain ammo, yes, but with the current modifications, it will recoil slightly softer. Ooh, and also, we can load the projectiles with a contact explosive that defeats all known body armor, and it's safe enough to use so that it won't unintentionally explode against the rifling of the barrel.
So with eye-cast fireball being the main bullet point of your pitch, the following response from the board isn't laughter or ridicule. It's a pat on the back and an agreed percentage increase of the handgun to 117% for fucking pick a reason. And an immediate shift toward the first working prototype with a budget that's basically infinite. Even more terrifying than that is after first contact with a bunch of Crayola crayon uniform sporting assholes that flew in with whale-shaped ships from deep space with also really good body armor and personal shielding. These people decided to scale the ammunition up. Again, the result is quite possibly the most devastating handgun that's ever been designed.
Being chambered in 12.7 by 40mm, a single millimeter short of the ancient and legendary Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum. The M225 semi-armor piercing high explosive pistol cartridge is quite possibly the single most effective handgun round that has ever been issued to military personnel. A significant jump from a 260 or 300 grain bullet, the 400 grain projectiles do far more than fly very straight and hit very, very hard.
This horrifying nonsense uses a projectile that is fully jacketed and backed by a short delay impact explosive traveling at 2,800 feet per holy fucking second, which creates more than one horrifying effect on target, while also being about as accurate as a fucking rifle. If you're unfortunate enough to not have armor on, this virtually guarantees that your helpless body is being overpenetrated like an altar boy on Sunday, while the short delay explosive blood eagles your back to such a point that your shocked expression would only be eclipsed by the realization that your pronouns were just adjusted from whatever the fuck they were to were.
And even if you have armor on and are still unfortunate enough to be shot, this has a serious fissuring and fragmenting effect on both UNSC plates and Covenant combat harnesses, pretty much ensuring that the plate hit, regardless of location, is both spalling into your face and heavily degraded to the point where follow-up hits will likely defeat the purpose of wearing armor in the first place.
The result of which was the most horrifying combination of violence and liquid efficiency in the history of the UNSC. A Spartan II with the shoulder-fired wood chip, or otherwise known as an MA5B, and the anti-aircraft handgun known as the M6D. And by the way, for students of history, anti-aircraft weapons when used on infantry have a tendency to get more than a little messy, would lead to carpets of bodies that would require a little more Lysol than one would care to stock a janitor's closet with. More to the point, there have been many service weapons and variants issued to military personnel throughout the Covenant War. But it would seem that never before or since has anything been quite as useful. The rifle mulching dudes, while the handgun delivering a magazine-fed uppercut so devastating that even hunters would give it pause or extended volleys of fire. All the while being carried by green-armored, 7-foot-tall, 1,000-pound assholes sporting Bengal tigers for arms, ensuring that both guns are kept as flat-shooting and accurate as possible. This was simply so devastating, and the huge handgun was so well-liked that some examples of it are carried, either issued or stolen, by those outside the Spartan command billet. Occasionally, throughout the Covenant War, some Navy officers, including admirals, who have had run-ins with Spartans seem to somehow end up with the things as either trinkets or actual self-defense firearms.
This two-handed exploding magazine-fed meth was so devastating that it was mimicked into the 50 caliber 300 grain ammo used by the M6C. Ultimately, upping the overall grain weight to 350 grains, this is much hotter ammunition, and is universally regarded as both making the M6C more effective on target, but more difficult to use as per the previous ammunition types. Spartan 3s and 4s, with their augmentations, seem to use them very effectively, however, even to the point where they sometimes resemble their Spartan 2 counterparts.
Although there are some drawbacks in the design as a whole. Its trigger guard is barely that, as it's so huge that it guards from almost nothing and provides easy access to, well, anything. Its size also makes the use of a holster impossible. Plate magnets sort of solve this problem, but do not do so enough for those carrying it to do so with a round in the chamber, and necessitating the use of a manual safety for those that do use it or need to get it out of the way to get back to the rifle quickly. The slide overhangs the frame enough to not help the shooters control the stout recoil, at all, to the point where even Spartans need to wrestle its recoil that includes the M6C or D, depending on the ammunition, from time to time. Manual safety is so badly placed that those who use the manual safety need to turn the entire handgun or use their opposite hand in order to use it. And any full-size handgun that requires use of grip extensions on its magazines was clearly designed by somebody in the 4th grade and never really got past the "you know it would be cool" portion of the design phase.
Now, given all of that, what it was and has been though was good enough. And when you're fighting a galaxy-spanning war lasting over 30 years, a lot of good enough to do the job right now, rather than a few of perfect sometimes, seems to be what history deems as absolutely required to fight and win wars. And in the case of the M6D, it would seem that the training and augmentations of the Spartan 2s would yield the golden rule here yet again. Training absolutely matters, and having polar bears for biceps seems to help a bit when the power armor gets bolted onto a combat skin.
Insofar as its mark on history goes, it seems to serve the niche that it was designed for. And while there have been questions regarding the efficacy of some of the design team's decision-making, those who needed to use it, and in the case of the M6D, it may have been a goofy-looking pile of bullshit that barely made any sense from the word go, but it would seem that on occasion, madmen sometimes get something absolutely right. If you got this far, you're a fucking nerd, and I appreciate you a ton. For those who want to stick to the end to see what we had to do to make this nonsense make sense, stand by. For the rest of you, we'll see you again soon. Take care. Alright, look, as previously stated, Halo's gun stuff is frustrating and it's absolutely retarded. And look, I have a lot to do as far as gun guide gymnastics just to make this remotely make any sense, especially the ammunition types, lack of grain weights that are provided in the source material, and the oddly specific but complete bullshit that is impossible, ever.
And yeah, the biggest deal here was the caliber. The M6C was the most problematic, honestly. For those of you that don't know, 12.7 by 40 millimeter is stupid long as a cartridge. There's a reason why the Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum, which is 12.7 by 41, is only used in revolvers. Each round is as long as quite a few rifle cartridges. For instance, the 5.56 by 45 millimeter, which is the current NATO rifle round for the M4. So a near M4 magazine-sized pistol grip is just simply not going to work for normal people. Now, 50 Action Express is, however, an auto-loading pistol cartridge, so although it's huge, it is still possible, and a 4-pound pistol really makes sense in this way.
Yeah, I would really like to see someone fucking around with a 50 Action Express, like that chick that's in Warehouse Supply that's 4 feet 2.
It's like looking at it's like trying to get Peter Dinklage to use a gun with a grip the size of Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy.
And look, everybody, you bet your sweet pippy I would. so just imagine some tiny person getting their fucking shoelaces untied by a 50 AE, and that's your basic pistol qualification. These people are high, and the person that they're using for their small arms, reference, the dude has to have a Punisher skull on his business card. Okay, so look, scaling up the M6D and realizing how huge that Spartan 2s are, this is where 12.7 by 40 makes sense, sort of. So we had to roll with that. But the problem is Halo 2 and on is also a problem because of how much weaker but varied in performance the handgun is compared to like the M6D and Halo CE. So it just makes sense to separate the calibers and model and change up the ammunition type. Basically used within the M6C and tie in the Spartan 3s and 4s to using the C as the D returns in Halo 5. And it's like an absolute unit, but it also looks huge in Spartan 4 hands. So to make all this bullshit make a little sense, those concessions need to be made. Because in the actual lore, we're looking at these things sharing magazines and ammunition, and that just, by performance, impact, hits, like what they do to people when they strike them, how far away you can shoot them, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And you can't like just grain weight up and plus P 12.7x33 to be a fucking battle rifle cartridge. It's just not gonna work.
No, that's how you create handgun shaped grenades.
Yeah, I mean, like if like 2,800 feet per second, which yeah, there are no hit scan guns in Halo ever. They're all projectile based, even the laser. So yeah, I had to figure out the muzzle velocity of Halo CE's guns and all this other shit. It just doesn't make any sense to keep them the same caliber. Like, you have to do something. So an extra 7mm and a whole lot of extra powder and grain makes sense versus just trying to keep them the same caliber, because it doesn't. It just fucking doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, also you got to kind of consider too, it's just future, so I doubt they're loading their ammo with like freaking tight group or power pistol. It's probably some like future space powder, but I don't know, man. It's just. Oh, and also the first ammunition type used for the M6D, 450 Magnum Express, it's absolutely canon. Like, that's canon, which makes even less sense as it's not really better performing than 50 Action Express, to be honest. So, I mean, we had to make it explode and then force the change to 12.7x40 to keep things from going completely off the rails.
So yes, it's 100% stupid. Yeah, I'm actually trying to make science fiction nonsense make sense. And no, I don't sleep much. And you know what? No, fuck you. You're not my mom. I do what I want. You motherfuckers honestly believe that just...
Anyhow.
You know, fuck it. You know, fuck it.
Yeah, all right. For those of you that have, we appreciate you for sticking with this video for this long. So let's get this channel off the ground. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Jesus Christ, go take a nap. Make some tea or something. I don't know, dude. Well, it's getting late. Let's get this video recorded. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
You're a bathroom.
You're. Shut up.